Well, the National Cereals and Produce Board is at the heart of Kenya's national food and nutritional strategy. Actually, the board is part of the Agriculture Transformation Strategy 2019 to 2029, which seeks to deepen food security in the country. This week on Inside Government, we're talking to the Managing Director, NCPB, Mr. Joseph Kimote, on what is the role of NCPB in ensuring food security here in Kenya and the reforms that are currently underway at the board. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Bona MD. Tell us now, with the ongoing drought that the country has experienced and food security challenges that we have experienced, what has been the role of NCPB in ensuring that the situation is ameliorated?
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Mr. O'Brien, and thank you very much indeed for hosting us in this program. The role of the National Cereals and Produce Board, being a commercial state institution, is to ensure that indeed we provide pre- and post-harvest activities in the country. In terms of managing the food security, that is part of the post-harvest activities in the country. The main role is to ensure that indeed we minimize on first harvest losses in the country through a number of interventions. The first intervention is through ensuring that we have proper drying services and fumigation services for each and every citizen or every trader or miller who is having their cereals at the National Cereals and Produce Board. The other aspect is also to ensure that we provide affordable and quality storage services to minimize on the wastage which come along with post-harvest losses. We have a big role also to ensure that we advise the government on the various options available to ensure that we mitigate the effects of drought. You have rightly said that we are facing some levels of food shortages and also some levels of increase in food prices. We have what we call the National Food Reserve Division of the National Cereals and Produce Board, which is envisaged in the reforms. The main role of this division is to ensure that we provide proper food analysis of the country in terms of what we call the National Food Balance Sheet Committee of the country. We advise the Minister of Agriculture and the government in general on what exactly is happening in the food sector, and that is our main role, to ensure that we stabilize the food insecurities which may be there in the country.
You see, the NCPB, I mean, the history of this institution goes back all the way to pre-independence level. We're talking about 1903, when the colonialists, came up with the concept of having a storage system. What would you say has been the role of NCPB in ensuring there is food security in this country?
Now, this was done through a number of interventions. Number one, during the years, was actually buying of the cereals from the farmers at a price which was predetermined by the government. The issue here was to ensure that farmers get some level of protection from their efforts, and the government was compensating them by giving them a favorable price for their produce. The main role was to ensure that indeed we keep money back to the pockets of farmers as a way of enhancing their productivities. The other role was to ensure that because farmers then did not have adequate storage facilities, and therefore it was necessary for those produce to be stored within the silos and the store network of NCPB. That was to ensure that we minimize on post-harvest losses. As years evolved, obviously there was a lot of private sector involvement in this process, and NCPB was also opened up to the private sector, so that anyone with cereals and he or she does not have proper storage facilities can indeed store their produce at NCPB facilities, of course at a fee. So that was now the commercialization of the National Cereals and Produce Board, so that indeed the private sector also could take advantage of the facilities which have been built by the government to protect on post-harvest losses. The other issue was about the farm inputs, mainly about fertilizers. The government made strategic decisions to reduce the cost of production of farm produce. And one of the critical inputs was indeed the fertilizers. So the government started a program referred to as the subsidized government program on fertilizers, which has been running over the years. And the objective was to ensure that the smallholder farmers are cushioned against the high prices of fertilizers. And NCPB was a critical player in ensuring that indeed the subsidized fertilizer reach the small order farmers to the deepest level in this country. And indeed, that has been a major role of NCPB in promoting food security. The other role, of course, as I've said, Mr. O'Brien, has been the advisory role. Because over the years, NCPB has developed or has amassed massive institutional knowledge on management of what we call agricultural commodities. And the issue is also to advise the government on appropriate intervention measures which are appropriate to be able to mitigate against the food insecurity.
You're talking about post-harvest losses in this country, and when you talk to the Ministry of Agriculture, when you talk to agriculture experts, they will tell you that the country loses about between 35 and 45% of our harvest, during the post-harvesting season. Under the ongoing reforms, how is NCPB going to be positioned to ensure that we minimize our post-harvest losses?
As I've said, one of the mechanisms we are pursuing is to ensure that we recapitalize our infrastructure. If you go around the country, we have silo complexes across the country, and what we have done is to refurbish these facilities to be able to reach out to the expectations of having quality services. We have also gone a step further, introduced what we call the mobile drying services. You realize that some of the farmers are in far-fetched areas who may not access NCPB facilities. So now we have mobile dryers which are going to go around and ensure that they dry the produce which is being produced by the farmers. We also have aflatoxin testing facilities across our network. These are largely the silo complexes in Nairobi, that is the grain silos, in Narok, in Nakuru, in Bungoma, and in Meru. All we want to see is to ensure that before the grains are uploaded or they are intake into our systems, they are indeed tested for quality for aflatoxin. That is a fundamental aspect to ensure that we take in only grains which meets the quality specifications. Now, these aflatoxin is also open to the members of the public. We have actually worked very closely with the millers, with the traders, so that indeed they utilize NCPB facilities at a small fee for aflatoxin testing. In terms of also managing the post-harvest losses, we have also partnered with other organizations where we may not have certain competencies, for example, to be able to reach out to as many farmers as possible. So we're also pursuing a partnership approach with like-minded institutions to be able to manage that. We have also capacity built our staff. We have trained our staff on good post-handling activities across the country. We have also trained them on best practices in fumigation and quality management. We're also partnering very closely with private sector organizations like Trademark East Africa to be able to work on a program of decontaminating our cereals from aflatoxin. So all these are programs which are aimed at post-harvest losses. You realize that when cereals indeed are invested with that kind of toxins, the option most of the times is just to ban it, and that is absolute wastage. And yet we want to be a food secure country. So in a nutshell, O'Brien, that is what we are trying to do to be able to manage our post-harvest management programs.
When you look at your infrastructure, I mean, you don't have any other institution in East and Central Africa, with the kind of infrastructure that you have. You are talking about more than 7 silos. You're talking about more than 110 depots, spread around the country. But the challenge has been, I mean, the last time NCPB constructed a new silo, was back in the mid-1990s. The dynamics have changed. The technology has changed. So how do you plan to deepen your investment in infrastructure, to meet the growing demand for this kind of infrastructure?
Let me say what we are trying to do is to modernize our infrastructure. Because you realize that some of our infrastructure were built many years ago, and therefore technology has evolved, and also modern ways of doing things. So we are in all the counties across the country. We are in the 46 counties. There's only one county where we are not represented, but we are largely everywhere in this country. So all we are trying to do, number one, is to modernize and refurbish our facilities to be able to reach out to the threshold which is expected of the standards in which we operate in. Number two is also to work closely with the county governments. Where we strongly feel, for example, we don't have a presence and we want to serve our customers more efficiently. Agriculture being a devolved function, we have an obligation, and we have started this program, to be able to reach out to the respective county administrations. It may be a buying center, for example. It may be a sort of a satellite. For example, we just have a satellite we have launched the other day in Kianjai in Meru County, whereby we are reaching out to the farmers of that area through a partnership approach with the citizens and the administration of that area. So in other words, we are pursuing a partnership approach to be able to reach out every part of this country, working closely with the county governments and also other private sector operatives.
I know the question of your cash flow has been discussed in the past, and I know that the board is struggling with a loan from KCB, which has somehow eroded your books. Are you working with the national government to try and see how this can be resolved? Because actually, it is the national government is what caused the current situation, financial situation at NCPB.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. We have come a long way. You are spot on, really. This loan came along through a government intervention program. What we have done, is we have done this very consciously with the government, is to indeed work on a program of how some of these debts may be paid. And I'm very happy to tell you that, Mr. O'Brien, because of that close collaboration with the government, the Minister of Agriculture, the Cabinet Secretary, the Permanent Secretary, and also across the national government operations, we have managed to get the KCB loan paid to the tune of 2.6 billion shillings. And we are working closely with the government to ensure that also the balance, around 3.7 billion shillings, is equally paid.
I know you've been here, for less than 3 years, and you came at a time when this institution was going through a serious management crisis. What have you managed to do, to try and stabilize the situation here?
In terms of our customer experiences, we have actually focused the brand to be able to be more reliable and also be more acceptable to the public. We have done a few things. Number one, we have positioned the brand in the digital space. We have also retooled our staff to refocus their mindsets, to think about the customer and also to engage very closely with the customers. We have also reaching out our operations through what we call a customer relation management approach, whereby we have now a CRM module, which is a module we utilize to be able to reach out to our customers and have a proper engagement with our customers using the digital platforms. We have also gone a step further as an institution and looked for partners and other value-added relationships. And I can say that we are partnered with Safaricom, Digifab. We are partnered with universities to be able to carry out some research on what exactly we need as an institution. Recently, we carried out a customer satisfaction survey, and I can say in a nutshell, our customer satisfaction index has increased by almost 10 points. We used to be at around 60%. We have increased to approximately in excess of 75%. And that is a big, big level of a sort of a statement that the institution indeed is focused on positioning its brand to meet the customer expectations. We have also revamped our policy framework so that we can operate in an environment which is well regulated. As you know, as a commercial entity, we have our facilities. And our facilities are available for lease to those who may need those spaces. It may be millers, traders, and other players in the sector. So we have revamped our leasing framework. We have a very robust leasing process, which is well streamlined. We have minimized on personal discretions. We have ensured that everything is aligned to the policies. We also have strengthened our debt management practices. The institution had a lot of commercial debts from those who did not want to pay. We have gone a step further and looked at our debt position. And those debts which cannot be pursued, maybe because they are legally time-barred, we have made a proposal to the board for their write-offs. We are talking about approximately around 900 million shillings in that regard. Then those which cannot be written off, we are pursued those who owe the institution through a number of ways. Number one is utilization of internal structures. Number two is we have professionalized debt collection activities. We have looked for professional firms who can help us. And because of that effort, we have managed to redeem in excess of 140 million shillings through those debt collection activities.
And so how much amount is outstanding?
Well, apart from the around 900 million shillings, which is due for write-off, I can say we have approximately around 50 million shillings, which is being pursued through internal and external debt collection activities.
And how much is owed to you by the national government and the county government?
As I've just told you, the KCB loan, it was around 6 billion shillings. We got a payment of around 2.6 billion shillings from the national government, leaving a balance of around 3.6 billion shillings. So that is what we have on the KCB loan. As I've told you, there is a commitment from government to ensure that indeed that part of the loan is also settled. Yes, we are owed by county government a few, around approximately, let's say around 10 million shillings by various county governments. We have approached those county governments individually, and you have a payment plan on how the monies will be paid. So we have a concrete payment plan with the county governments on how those amounts will be paid. So in other words, we have a good view on every debt which the institution is owed.
In the past, there has been serious encroachment in some of your property. And I know the Office of the Auditor General has raised this in the past, that you are at risk of losing almost 25 parcels of land in this country. How do you plan to ensure that you recover the land that has been encroached and you ring-fence yourself against future encroachment?
The issue of encroachment is not necessarily only for the National Cereals. It is in many other institutions. It all depended on how the institutions address those matters. What we have done ourselves, we have made a conscious decision that we shall not allow anyone to encroach our facilities. So we have mapped all those facilities where we have an issue. We have done evaluation on exactly the location of the NCPB assets. We know exactly what NCPB owns. We have title deeds for those facilities which are owned by the National Cereals and Produce Board. And where there are exceptions, we have pursued those cases on a case-by-case basis in conjunction with the relevant government institutions, including the National Land Commission and the relevant county governments.
Have you so far managed to recover any land yet?
Absolutely, yes. We have recovered land. We're in the process of getting some land in Kericho. We're in the process of also getting land in Kapsabet, mainly the North Rift area. And therefore, we have mapped all those areas, and we have a strategy. We have involved professionals to be able to get back that land. So in other words, it is serious work in progress. And the board of directors have made a commitment that all those lands which have been encroached must revert back.
Turning on now to fertilizer, and the fertilizer, has been one of your flagship business, in terms of profit and revenue streams. And this has been the case, since 2004, when the institution, when NCPB started getting into this business. How is NCPB now well positioned to roll out the fertilizer subsidy program, which was announced early this year by the government?
Thank you very much. As you have rightly said, fertilizer distribution is part of the core business of the National Cereals and Produce Board. In fact, it's one of the reasons why the institution exists. Now, when the program was announced by the Cabinet Secretary, the Honorable Peter Munya, on the 1st of April, 2022, the program was supposed to ride on the NCPB agency fertilizer distribution framework to be able to reach out to as many farmers as possible. Now, as much as the government did not buy fertilizer, NCPB was distributing fertilizers owned by various companies on what we call on a consignment basis. So the way it worked was that the subsidy component of that fertilizer will be paid by the government. So far, the program has taken off very well, Initially, we had some challenges of the transport issues because of the fuel shortage, because most of the fertilizer was being lifted from Mombasa to the various destinations. That now challenge has eased off, and we have so far distributed in excess of 60,000 bags to the various farmers in this country. We have enlisted more suppliers to be able to join the program through a procurement process, government procurement process. And therefore, in the next few days, we will have a lot of fertilizer available to farmers for those who are still planting and those who may need it for top dressing. So in other words, the program is running. We have a very good collaborative sort of effort with the ministry where the subsidy component will be paid from. We have also called and we have a meeting with all the manufacturers so that they can also understand exactly how the program is going to work.
So how much are you buying, for example, a bag of DPK, from the distributors, and how much are you selling the same to the farmers?
Yeah, well, the price ranges, as you realize, this is a product which is owned by various companies. We have specific prices, and the prices actually average for each one of them. For example, DAP is around 6,250. Then we sell to farmers at a price which is already subsidized.
And is a subsidy of close to 60%.
It is maximum. It is a high subsidy, and that is why we only sell the fertilizer to the registered farmers. You must be a registered farmer by the county where you come from.
Is the government honoring its part of the subsidy reimbursement?
Yeah, yes, it is. We have all commitments at the highest level in the ministry for the subsidy to be paid. So I can say they're honoring. Mm-hmm. Yes, they are.
What do you plan to do, so that you don't end up with another KCB loan?
Yeah, the board of directors have made a decision that we don't want to take that route. And also, myself as accounting officer, it is an area which I don't want to try because it's not the right thing to do for the institution. So we have done two things. Number one, I have a commitment from the cabinet secretary that the reimbursement will be done expeditiously. We have signed the necessary protocols to ensure that indeed that happens. Secondly, we have a very high-level interaction with the ministry in terms of making the applications to ensure that indeed there is no delay. So I have no reason to doubt at all that the subsidy component will be paid expeditiously. Obviously, nobody wants to get back to the KCB loan issue.
I know there are a lot of farmers who are watching this program and they're asking themselves, what do I need to do to qualify for that fertilizer subsidy program?
Well, it's very simple. You just need to go to the nearest chief office with an application form. The chief endorses it. Then you submit the form.
Where do you get the application form from?
It's available in the chief's office. Mm-hmm. Yes, or even the county. The country, yes, they're available. The form is signed by the chief to confirm that indeed you own this land, you till this land. Then the form is now taken to the county office for validation. After that, the information is uploaded in the system. Now NCPB can indeed assess that information from the uploaded information by the county agricultural office. Now, when you go to an NCPB depot to buy that fertilizer, you need to go with your ID because we must confirm that indeed your details are the same details which we have in our system. We only sell to registered farmers.
So what have you done to ensure that, farmers get this fertilizer when they need it and at the cost that is desired?
Well, as I've said, this being an emergency program, obviously we started a bit late. That's a fact. The rains almost had come in. So you find that there are some farmers who had bought the fertilizer at the commercial rates, which was around 6,000 shillings before the fertilizer was indeed initiated. But we still have a sizable number of farmers who benefited from the subsidized prices. And these are mainly the small order farmers. So one thing we are going to do is to ensure that indeed we have many suppliers of the fertilizer and the fertilizer is distributed to those depots. We are mainly targeting now the top dressing fertilizers because now farmers are about to start top dressing so that we can also avail it to them. There are still a few farmers who are planting. So again, we are still supplying to those farmers who need the fertilizers.
Mm-hmm. What is the turnaround time, between the time I fill the form and the time I get the fertilizer?
As soon as possible. Filling the form and getting the approvals and concurrence from the county government is a one-day affair. And the uploading is done the same day.
As we come to the end of this interview, I want to hear from you. Where do you see the National Cereals and Produce Board in the next 5 years?
Thank you very much, Edith O'Brien, for that question. We have a strategic plan, and the trajectory of the institution is very clear. We want to be a leader in the management of grains in this country. We want to be an institution which is collaborating very closely within the public sector and also the private sector. And so far we have seen a lot of interest and a lot of collaborative sort of spirit with the private sector in this country. We have seen many millers and many people in the agro-business space looking forward to doing business with us or partnering with us. I want to say that. I also want to see an institution which has very modern technology, very modern sort of infrastructure, which indeed is very efficient in the management of the grain sector. That is on the commercial side of things. On the government social intervention side of things, we have what we call the National Food Reserve. This is where the strategic food reserves of the country are managed from. We want to work very closely with the government because this is a government social program to ensure that we indeed restock the strategic food reserve of the country so that indeed we can make some meaningful contribution in the food and nutrition security in this country. So in a nutshell, that is what we are looking forward to. We also want an environment whereby the institution is operating in a very modern environment in terms of the way, the work environment, the way we relate with stakeholders, the way we respond to customer requirements, and also the way we relate amongst ourselves as colleagues. So that is the kind of trajectory we are pursuing as an institution. Right.
Anything else?
Well, the only thing I can say is that what NCPB requires right now is a lot of support from the members of the public. We are building our structures, we are building our image, our brand, and all we look forward to is a lot of support so that indeed we can have a meaningful contribution to the economy of this country. That is the reason why the institution was created in the first instance, to ensure that indeed provide value to the citizens of this country. So thank you very much indeed, O'Brien, for hosting us, and we appreciate this conversation.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and all the best.
Thank you very much. Asante.
Well, Joseph Kimote is the Managing Director of National Cereals and Produce Board, joining us this week on Inside Government to explain to us what the board is doing to stabilize food security in this country, and of course to ensure as a farmer you have sufficient fertilizer as and when you need it. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Thank you indeed for your time. Keep watching. Good afternoon.